Georgia Tech's electric offense is the best Boston College has played all season, and that should be trouble for the Eagles' struggling defense.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want good analysis, details, and news on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On BC is a free daily Boston College podcast, the only one, and we are on the Locked On Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. On today's show, we're going to look at final predictions for the Georgia Tech game, how BC's offense will need to perform to attack the Yellow Jackets, and can BC slow down Haynes King in that offense? We're going to talk about it. And to do it, it's our Friday guest, as always, Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider. Mitch, how we doing?
You know, I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities in the running, but I think from last Saturday to this Saturday, I feel like it could be the worst 7 days in Boston College athletics history. It's definitely up there.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them, and I don't even I'd have to look at dates. Like, you probably would go back to 2015, and there's probably some clunker in there because that was the year that they lost everything. So I'm sure we could find something if we went looking for it, but there's potential here. And the potential starts with the Yellow Jackets because I felt like maybe last week, there was like, oh, maybe with the red bandana, there's going to be some juice in this team. You got Bam Crouch back, and then he's not there, and all this issue, and that you're feeling things are going to get better. They didn't get better. Now I feel like we're counting down the time here for the season to end. We'll talk about Georgia Tech. Their offense. Let's start there.
Yeah, when we previewed this, looking at this game at the beginning of the season, I saw it as, okay, like they can compete with, maybe beat SMU, red bandana game, like you said. Coming off Notre Dame, that'll be a tough game. And then regardless of what happens, it'll probably be an emotional letdown for the Georgia Tech game, and they'll probably lose that one. And then the season happened, and it's just like, no, well, this team just isn't that good, and Georgia Tech is very good. And a big reason why they're so good is because of their offense. And when I was watching this offense over the summer to prep for this opponent, the phrase I came up with was mental blitzkrieg, because what Georgia Tech does is there's so much pre-snap motion. There's so many things they can do that the defense is just distracted and can't focus on any one thing. So they're not going to beat you with just short passing. They're not going to beat you with just running the ball. It's going to be all these option plays, all these RPOs, jet sweeps, all this kind of stuff that defenses have to account for, that you kind of just lose track of the ball and you're not sure who has it on any given play. All of that goes through the quarterback Haynes King, who's now in his 6th year, maybe 7th year of college football. Kind of has this weird role where, again, he's passing, but that's not the biggest part of the game. He's extensively used as a runner, especially designed runs, mostly gap scheme stuff. So you're going to see a lot of pullers. Georgia Tech is 2nd in the country in counter, and I think they're top 10 in power in terms of what rush concepts they use. 2nd in counter at 34.5% of their designed runs, 22.2% power, which is 8th. So they're going to do a ton of that. And they incorporate the jet motion, not just as eye candy. They actually will hand that off. They'll use that as the read. They read out that option with that player, or they'll just use it as a distraction while they're handing it off to one of their running backs, Jamal Haynes, who's kind of in a slot back role almost now. But they also have Malachi Hosley, this running back who transferred from Penn and has been really good this year. Again, they don't throw that much. If they do, it's usually screens. It's an RPO. It's really short. They have one of the lowest average depths of target and quickest time to throws in the FBS. They throw it deep a little bit, but it's usually like they set that up after distracting the defense enough, but they don't throw over the middle in terms of the intermediate area at all. So that's even still hard to stop because, again, you're so focused on defending the run, defending the option, that it's you just don't really know what to expect as the defense. So they're not running like the triple option as they did, in the 2010s with Paul Johnson, but it's kind of a modern variant of that, if you will. So their offense is just really tough to stop.
So, you know what would be just like the cherry on the sundae of the season? I was just looking up how many rushing yards Haynes King has. He has 754 rushing yards. And then I looked up who's the leading quarterback rusher in ACC history. It's Tyler Murphy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who had 1,129. So Haynes King needs 375 yards
in 3 games
to take over Tyler Murphy.
Yep.
Could he do 375 against? No, he won't do that.
Not in one game, probably not. But he's not. It's not going to be like Lamar Jackson back in 2016, where he just went absolutely wild. It's not going to be that bad, but because he will give the ball off. He is their leading rusher by a decent chunk in terms of carries, but he does hand the ball off a good bit. Gets rid of the ball quickly. Their offensive line is decent, but they're helped because they get rid of the ball so quickly. I think they have the 14th fastest average time to throw at 2.55 seconds, and their air yards per attempt is 6.7 yards, which is 130th, the second lowest in the Power Four behind, or I guess it's only above Iowa. So again, it's all quick stuff. They don't hold on to the ball very long, and obviously King can create a little bit. So it's the main receiver, if you want to know one, is Eric Rivers. He's a very fast transfer from Florida International, who's been pretty good this year. But I mean, they could probably beat this game. They could probably beat BC without even having to throw the ball, even though that's probably the worst aspect.
Now, I just saw the injury list. Do you think even with the massive injuries that Georgia Tech has, they're going to be able to beat
Man, missing that one long snapper, that's really going to affect the outcome of this game. I do wonder because some of their defensive starters have been missing. We'll talk about that in the next segment, but their offense has been pretty healthy this year. They've had a few guys get nicked up here and there, I think mostly on the line. They have been missing their slot receiver, Malik Rutherford, for a few weeks, but again, it's hard to tell with these availability reports if those guys are actually out for the season or if they're actually back, because a lot of them have missed like the last few games leading up to Georgia Tech's bye week, which was last week. So they've all had this extra week to get healthy, get rested. So they're going to be coming in guns a-blazing, especially because this is a team that needs style points to help their playoff case, because they're coming off this loss to NC State. NC State's a decent team, so it's not, nothing crazy, but if you're a team that wants to make the playoff, wants a home playoff game, you got to take care of business against the worst teams in your conference. And if Georgia Tech comes out and struggles against BC or lets them hang around, that's going to reflect poorly on them. So they need to come out and win this game decisively by 4 or 5 scores.
So if you didn't get the joke, it was kind of an inside joke between me and Mitch, and anyone who's on hopelessly addicted to X. The new injury report or availability report is out, and Georgia Tech has one player listed on it, and it's a long snapper. That's the only player on their injury report. BC, I just counted it while Mitch was talking, has 25 players on their injury report. So
is that all of them or just the ones who are out?
No, that's all of them. That's
okay.
Amari Jackson is listed as questionable, so he probably won't play. Bam Crouch is out. Jaden Skeet, we knew was going to be out because he hurt his shoulder. I don't know if you heard that. You have Owen Stodmeyer still.
What was the long snapper that was hurt?
Will Benton.
Okay, so he's the backup long snapper.
So they're missing their backup long snapper. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, enough of the sarcasm.
I mean, maybe he might have began the year as the starter, but he has fewer snaps and fewer games played than the other long snapper. So I would imagine he is the backup. Yeah, the other one has played more. So yeah, what can you do?
2 more weeks, Mitch.
Mm-hmm.
And actually 3 more weeks because we have a bye week that we have to also get through. Anyways, in a moment, Mitch and I are going to talk about BC's offense. How is this going to line up against Georgia Tech's defense? I want to hear his thoughts on that. And BC makes a decision on who's going to start at quarterback. Not a big surprise, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time. These players deliver when it matters most. Let's break it down. For Boston College, I'm picking Luca Lombardo just because I can. Luca Lombardo has been hitting every field goal that he has this year. He's been the lone bright light consistently throughout this season. When the pressure is on, he comes through every time. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, his performance is never a fluke. Luca Lombardo is on a streak. And just like Luca Lombardo delivered for the Boston College Eagles, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here of Eagle Insider. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day. And to all of my everydayers out there, thank you all who have made it through every episode of this show since the beginning of the season. It's been tough, but hopefully we've made it entertaining. Make sure you listen to every show from this week if you have not done so already. Now, on Thursday, Bill O'Brien announced the starting quarterback, and I don't think I was honestly, maybe a little surprised, but he named Dylan Long. The only reason I was a little surprised was I was wondering if he'd go with Grayson James being in his final start at home. I was wondering maybe if he'd go down that road, but instead he goes for Dylan Lonergan, saying that he deserved it, which I thought, he threw for 232 yards against SMU last week. He's going to be the starter. How does Georgia Tech's defense look, Mitch?
It's definitely a step below their offense. If you look at all their statistics, they haven't been overwhelmingly good. You look at the games they've played, they've been giving up a lot of points, a lot of yards to pretty much every team they've played. They're very good. They're pretty good. They're not as good as in the red zone as SMU was, but they're pretty good there. But you look at all the games they've played, they shut down, a hurt up Syracuse team. The Duke game was kind of weird. If you watch it back, it's one of those kind of back and forth ones. They let Wake Forest score a lot of points. They obviously let North Carolina State score 48 on them the week before the bye week. So it's not the best unit. You have some decent players on there, namely defensive tackle Jordan Vandenberg, who's a very good nose tackle. The linebacker Kyle Efford, he wears 44. He's got big hair out the back. He's got the cowboy collar and everything. He's your platonic ideal of a linebacker. Then their safety, Clayton Powell-Lee, is a 4-year starter who's been around forever. But their secondary is a little banged up. Again, those guys aren't on the availability report, so we'll have to see what their status is because they've been juggling cornerbacks leading up to that bye week, so we'll have to see what happens there. So I'm obviously very worried for BC's offense because they struggle to consistently move the ball, and when they do, they can't finish drives in the red zone. And they obviously can't. They struggle to create explosive plays that lead to scores. So other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? You just don't really see something that BC can hang their hat on to defeat a Georgia Tech defense that is struggling. Like, they're allowing a decent amount of passing yards. They're pretty weak against the run. They actually have the second most missed tackles against the run in the Power 4 with, I think it's 97, if I remember correctly. So they miss a lot of tackles, which is a problem, and that could be good for BC. Turbo Richard is good at creating missed tackles, getting yards after contact. But the offensive line is still just such a major question mark for this group. We don't know what Jude Bowery's status is. He wasn't on the injury report, but he's always kind of a question mark. Kevin Klein got benched in the last game after being previously hurt, so you don't know what's going to happen at right tackle. So again, hard to rely on anything. And even last week against SMU, the offensive line allowed 8 sacks, and it wasn't like Dylan Lonergan was holding onto the ball for super long. Like, not a lot of those sacks were his fault. It was just pressure was getting there immediately. And if pressure is getting to the quarterback in 2 seconds or less, there's really not much any quarterback can do to defeat that. On defense, Georgia Tech, they're very multiple. They're not as siloed into certain schemes as a lot of other teams that BC has played. They use a lot of zone, a lot of middle field open coverages, but the coverage they use the most is cover 3, which is middle field closed. But they do a lot of post snap rotations. They have a lot of veterans playing, so a lot of guys who've been around for a while. So they play a lot of football. They know how to execute these complex schemes, but they don't force a lot of negative plays or defensive explosive plays. They've only forced 6 turnovers, which is very low. I think it's the second fewest in the Power 4. Sorry, it's tied for the fewest in the Power 4. It's tied for 127th overall. So not a lot of defensive explosive plays for them. A lot of their sacks have came against like Temple and Gardner-Webb. So, and again, aside from Vandenberg and Efford, like, there aren't a ton of like standout players, but they just play well. They play smart. Apart from the tackling issue, that it's hard to beat them because you don't really see something you're like, okay, we can pick at that matchup or we can defeat them this way. It's just, they're like pretty well rounded, and it's just going to be a real rough road for BC's offense again, because that's just how it's going this year.
Yeah, this is again, like, I think a lot of folks are really, down as they should. It feels like it's just been a really rough week. You have the loss of Central Connecticut in basketball. You have this, is there anything that you see that BC could do to keep this game close?
I think you need to employ that strategy that they've done at times in the last few weeks, where you have these drives that are marathon drives that take up a ton of time, keep the opponent's offense off the field, because Georgia Tech is going to be able to score very quickly, just with how diverse their offense is. They can get on the board really quickly. So the best way to prevent that is keep them off the field. Again, Georgia Tech's defense allows a decent amount of yards, so you, in theory, should be able to run the ball. Georgia Tech has given up a lot of rushing yards to most of their opponents, so in theory, that should work a little bit. But you have to finish those drives with touchdowns. So again, don't be surprised if Bill O'Brien is going for it on 4th and goal or 4th down inside the 25. They're going to need touchdowns to win this game as well. So you need to be able to run the ball well to keep their offense off the field. You need to play smart. Don't turn the ball over, especially in the red zone. When BC's on defense, I'm not really sure what to do just because it's so hard. Like, again, like nobody has really stopped this offense for a whole game because there's just so much to defend. I think in theory, you would want to play more zone and flood the middle of the field, the short area, the middle of the field with defenders, just to make King hold on to the ball a little bit longer. But if you do, like, BC has not been able to run zone this year, and they don't have the athletes to play man. So they're really just between a rock and a hard place here. They just don't have the guys on the field or on the sideline in terms of the coaching staff to where they could prepare a realistic path there where I can see BC winning this game.
Are there any young players that you're looking forward to see from BC this week? I mean, like, this is where we're at, right?
Given if their cornerbacks are a little hurt up, as they have been in the last few weeks, I'd be interested to see what Dawson Pugh can do, just because he's had some flashes here and there. He's made some nice plays. You assume that Georgia Tech is going to rotate their coverage toward Lewis Bond and Reed Harris. This is a nice story, at least. Lewis Bond, if he has 3 catches in this game, he'll break Zay Flowers' career receptions record for BC. So that's very much in the cards. He could get further up on the receiving guards list in this game. So that'll be something to keep an eye on for his senior day. Young players on defense. Not really. I mean, again, it's so hard to predict who's going to play on defense because guys will play and there's like, oh, that was some nice plays in this game. And then you won't see them for 3 weeks. And then they'll show up again. You're just like, I don't know what's going on with how snaps are being distributed on this defense. So really hard to predict on that side of the ball.
You bring up senior day, and that's the other sad part of this day is that I feel, as we've said on the show over and over again, these guys haven't quit. Like every game they go out there, they don't have enough. They don't have enough horses to hang with these teams this year just because of injuries and just the way this roster is constructed. You get some guys, Owen McGowan, Lewis Bond. This is gonna be their last game. Grayson James. This is gonna be their last game at BC. So it's just a kind of a real bummer to
Especially
watch.
I guess maybe not a lot of them, but like some of these guys came in like 2022 was their freshman year, and that year sucked, and then they had 2 decent. I guess that would only be for true seniors. So a guy like Quan Williams, who has played all 4 years and hasn't redshirted, like this would suck for him because he comes in as a true freshman. They are really bad. Get 2 years that are fine. You're like, okay, maybe we're building something, and then the bottom completely falls out your senior year. So yeah, that's really unfortunate.
All right, in our final segment, Mitch and I are going to give our predictions. You'll want to hear what we are predicting and see if you agree with us in just a moment. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. With the Celtics playing, you can get points for Jaylen Brown, rebounds for Sam Hauser or Jaylen Brown, and the odds in the game. You can get all of that on FanDuel. It's so easy to use. Even I can do it. It keeps the game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here with Mitch Wolf talking about the BC game coming up against Georgia Tech. This is a 16.5 point spread last I saw. And so let's dive into this. I'll go first because I just did Locked on Georgia Tech yesterday and I gave my prediction away, so I'll do it again. I don't think BC's going to cover. I will be at this game again in the press box, and I'm expecting a brutal second half as I think Georgia Tech needs a lot of points, and they're going to score a lot of points against BC, who, as you said, Mitch, like with a diverse offense that can do a whole lot of things, it's going to be a nightmare for a defense that's been struggling to do anything. So I think it's going to be something. I think BC, as you said, I think they're going to be able to score a couple touchdowns in this game. Maybe, a few early and then just Georgia Tech runs away. So I'm going to go with BC falling in their final home game, 48-17.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar. It's 49-17. I think Georgia Tech just goes touchdowns, and makes this a nice, clean game for them. And BC probably gets a touchdown late to make it look more respectable. A few interesting things on FanDuel. Make every vote more responsibly. This is for entertainment purposes, not actual gambling advice. They've added yardage totals to bet over under. So I'm interested in a few. So the one that I'm looking at first is BC total rushing yards. The over under is set at 143.5.
Rushing?
Which if you remember, sack yardage is counted against rushing yards in college football. So one would think that is likely
they're going to get
game
scripted out of that fast.
That too. So that would lead me to the under, and the odds are even at -114 either way. So that's funny to me. The other one, which is sad, is what do you think the Georgia Tech total yardage line is set at?
450.
Up.
500.
481.5.
Oh my gosh.
So if you want to be a real sicko, you could take the over on that. And then again, this is something that I've been following for the last few weeks that I think is a good strategy. If you look at the third and fourth quarter spreads, the third quarter, it's Georgia Tech -3.5 at -118. And then in the fourth quarter, it's Georgia Tech -3.5 plus 100. So and again, we both agree that Georgia Tech needs style points. They're going to keep the scoring going. And obviously BC plays terribly in the second half. So I like those lines in the second half where basically Georgia Tech needs to beat BC by a touchdown, even if BC gets a field goal, which I don't think they'll be kicking field goals at all. So, again, it's really unfortunate that the season has played out this way, and it's difficult to cover just because there isn't as much fun stuff to talk about when you almost know the team is going to lose every week. So this is where we're at. We're looking at third.
Remember last year when we were getting yelled at for doing like bowl projections and stuff like that? Those were the days, man. I miss that.
You never know. You never know what 6-6 feels like until it's gone.
Right. So before we head out, I was gonna do, and then I got sick, so I didn't decide not to do it. An extra episode. The BC landed a commitment this week. Yes, a 1-19 did land a commitment. Demetrius Thompson. It's not Demetrius. Demetrius Thompson, a 6'4" edge rusher from Missouri. They flipped him from Southeast Missouri State, which I had to look up as an FCS school. He had some MAC offers. He was on campus for a official visit for the Notre Dame game, flipped to BC. So they did land one after losing Nyquist Helton a couple weeks ago. So there's a commitment. There's some good news for you.
The silver linings, if you could call it that.
Yeah. Anyways,
the nickel linings, if you will.
Anyways,
the lead linings, because this team is poisonous.
Yeah. Well, the other news that's coming up is that we're starting to see BC making offers in the portal as D1, D2 schools and FCS schools are ending their season soon. So we'll be hearing more and more about that. And with the bye week, I'll have stuff on that. But before we go, Mitch, we should probably announce that we have a special. So not everyone listens is on Twitter. Next week on Thursday, the game plan is that we will have a special guest. We're gonna be interviewing Boston College legend Will Blackman, and he's gonna be on Wednesday night recording with the two of us. We'll drop it on Thursday. He's gonna talk about the state of Boston College sports. I want to know more about his whole career and his role into coaching. I'm sure Mitch has stuff he wants to ask him about
wine pairings.
But I was really pumped because Will reached out to us, so we're pumped to have him on. So we'll have hopefully scheduling. We haven't scheduled. Hopefully everything works out. So make sure you are subscribed to our channel to know when that interview drops as well. So Mitch, where can people find you?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. Check out my work at Eagle Insider. We have the matchup report. It's available by the time you listen to this. We'll have the 3-weekly previewing the game with some matchups to look at in this game. We'll have that out on Friday morning, and then we'll have the bye week, which, again, having the bye week this late in the season is just so weird because it's, especially with the season this bad, where it's just like, I don't even know what to talk about just because everything has been bad. And you don't really want to wrap up the season that week because you have a whole off season to do it and there's still a game left. and it's a game that I think BC actually has a decent chance at winning. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about and preview that Syracuse game, which again could really at least, make the season at least somewhat bittersweet, where it would be ending on a at least positive note.
And I will be at the game on Saturday. I should bring my skeleton with me, and then if things get bad, I'll just leave him at my laptop, and he can, where's AJ? Hey, he's over there. No, but I'll be there to do a post-game show, good or bad. You guys, please listen. Thank you. And I appreciate all of you who have made us part of your everyday routine. And check us out on Eagle Insider. We'll have all sorts of good stuff throughout the weekend as well. For Mitch, this is AJ. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.